All right, back here in the U.S., President Trump's order on asylum guidelines has the blessing of the Supreme Court. In a 7-2 ruling, the court allowed the enforcement of the new policy. Now, that policy simply states that anyone who passes through another country on the way to the United States must apply for asylum in that country and not enter the U.S. illegally to apply for asylum. The ruling is not the end of the court challenges to the policy change, but it does allow enforcement of the policy as the courts continue to fight. Joining me now is Wendy Patrick. She's an attorney and a political analyst. Wendy, good to have you back with us. So, Wendy, as we broke it down, this new asylum law requires that if migrants pass through other countries to get to the U.S., they must first try and find safe haven in other countries. The Supreme Court has ruled on it, but explain why it's not 100% a done deal, even if the Supreme Court has ruled on it and given it a 7-2 vote in its favor.
Because, Michelle, the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on the merits. What they've basically done is overruled an injunction that was put in place by the lower courts that prevented the policy from being implemented. So this is one of those cases where I always like to say, no court is saying, no, you can't, but not so fast. That's what the lower court said. But the Supreme Court basically said, nope, we're going to let this policy go into effect. We're going to let the administration do what it believes it has to do at the border. And that case will percolate through the lower courts. Michelle, you and I and our viewers all know it's headed back to the Supreme Court for a ruling on the merits. But we're not there yet. It's a temporary victory, but for the Trump administration, a victory nonetheless.
All right. But according to this rule, if we're debating the merits, according to this rule, only migrants who have been denied asylum in another country or are victims of severe human trafficking will be permitted to apply. So what is the challenge merit-wise against this?
Well, remember, merit-wise, the challenge has to do with this being different than the law that's been standing for 40 years. And what the court is basically arguing over, the lower courts are arguing over, is whether or not by executive action, by administrative rule, you can overrule existing law. Because remember that when you talk about asylum, that is a humanitarian form of legal relief. And it used to be the case up until this order by the president that you didn't have to go through those hurdles. In other words, you didn't have to be a victim of severe human trafficking. You didn't have to go through another country first and seek asylum there. And then remember, the third option, of course, is you have to come through a safe country, and closest one is Canada, so that's not happening. What we're really talking about is it's impacting South American, Central American countries other than Mexico. Wouldn't apply to Mexicans trying to come over. So unless you live in Mexico and you're coming over to seek asylum, you can no longer do it, according to the Supreme Court. But that doesn't mean anything about the merits of whether or not the administration's new rule is constitutional and legal. That's the battle that I would insinuate is headed back up to the Supreme Court for a ruling eventually on the merits.
All right, Wendy, I want to shift focus to Andrew McCabe, the former deputy and acting director of the FBI. U.S. Attorney Jesse Liu has reportedly recommended moving forward with charges against McCabe, rejecting his appeal. The potential charges relate to the DOJ Inspector General findings against McCabe regarding misleading statements concerning the Hillary Clinton-related investigation. So what does this all mean now, Wendy?
It sounds like it means he is likely to be charged, Michelle. And that has been long overdue, according to many people that have been following this case closely. And I have to say, as a lawyer, having been both a prosecutor and a defense attorney, I could argue both sides of this. Proving intent is never a slam dunk. Proving somebody intentionally lied, intentionally misled, as opposed to being briefed with bad information, that always, as obvious as it seems, requires a lot of behind-the-scenes work. But the fact that that's been done, apparently, and the prosecutors are recommending moving forward, the appeals have been denied, it looks to me like it's just a matter of time before hopefully I'm back on with you talking about what do these new charges mean.
All right, Wendy, before we let you go, we're getting some breaking news. As you know, the Democratic debate is happening right now as we speak. And we understand Andrew Yang was promising a big surprise. We understand that he's announced what that surprise is. He's doing something that no presidential candidate has ever done in history. He is promising that he's going to give away $1,000 a month, $120,000 a year, to 10 randomly selected families as part of a pilot program for his universal basic income proposal. Wendy, is that something that strikes you that could potentially be against election rules? It sounds like you're, in a way, maybe bribing voters by saying you'll give them $1,000 a month? I mean, what's your initial read on this legally?
That's sort of the gut reaction, so obviously I'd have to know more about it. But you know what, Michelle, as I was listening to you, my very first question is, where is that money coming from? Is it coming from our paychecks? And if so, I don't think I'm in favor of it, because likely we're not going to be one of those randomly selected families. I cannot wait to research and learn more about that.
Okay, you know what,
that's
Wendy,
breaking news.
I've put you on the spot. I'm going to play the clip of what Andrew Yang said. Please watch.
Yes, you heard me right. We are giving away 10 freedom dividends of $1,000 a month for an entire year. Go to yang2020.com and tell us how you would spend $1,000 a month. And then if you win, you'll get the money and you'll get a whole lot of social media followers.
All right, it's his personal money, but he's giving away money to voters. I don't know. It smells a little fishy to me. Don't get me wrong. I'll sign up. I'll apply for some of that.
After the show, let's you and I call in and see if we answer the questions correctly. I've never seen that before. It's definitely out of the box. It's going to get him a lot of name recognition, but ultimately, I don't think that it's going to really spike his numbers in the polls. People are as skeptical as you and I and our viewers are, no doubt, right about now.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of the other candidates are going to be digging into the research to see if this is some kind of violation of something. Although I imagine his campaign probably did some serious research ahead of it. But if nothing else, look, it's gotten him attention. We're speaking about Andrew Yang.
Talking about it.
All right, Wendy, thank you so much. As always, Wendy Patrick, appreciate it.